My husband called me dead weight during his acceptance speech, in front of everyone, in front of his boss. He thought I was just the quiet wife who knew nothing about his dirty little affair. He didn't realize the dead weight he mocked was the only thing holding him back from the abyss. I was about to let go. The air at the annual Quantum Leap Dynamics Gala was thick with expensive perfume and ambition. I, Ilara Vance, was clutching my champagne flute, trying to manufacture a proud smile as my husband, Mark, walked onto the stage to accept his Manager of the Year award. My heart gave an unsteady beat, a sick, ugly premonition I had been ignoring for months. He looked polished under the stage lights, a perfect specimen of success at 40. Mark started his speech, thanking the board, thanking his team, and then he turned toward me. "And of course," he said, his voice booming over the speakers, "I have to thank my amazing wife, Ilara, who always holds down the fort." He paused, smiled, and then said the 7 words that killed everything. "Someone has to be the dead weight in a high-speed partnership. Right." The silence lasted 1 second, then shattered into polite, corporate chuckles. They thought it was a joke. But I saw the pitying looks from the other wives. I saw Chloe, the young intern at Mark's table, gazing at him with undisguised adoration. My heart felt like it was being squeezed, the air sucked clean from my lungs. And then I saw him, Julian Thorne, the company's enigmatic CEO, Mark's boss. He was not laughing. He was looking directly at me, not Mark. His gaze was razor-sharp, a cold, almost clinical observation that sent a shiver down my spine. I set my glass down. The sound of crystal on linen was pitifully small. I stood up. The room seemed to fall silent, though Mark's speech was still going. I felt hundreds of eyes on me as I turned my back and walked out of the ballroom. The sound of my heels on the marble floor was the only thing I could hear, louder than the blood screaming in my ears. I did not cry. It felt worse than crying. It was a cruel, sharp clarity. I had spent 15 years supporting his career, sacrificing my own in the marketing department, only to be called dead weight in front of his boss. As I stood in the empty elevator, looking at my faint reflection in the expensive evening gown, a cold thought formed. Dead weight is what pulls a ship down, but it is also what holds a ship steady in a storm, and Mark's storm was about to hit. I went home to our cold penthouse. I did not change. I sat in the dark, staring out at the Chicago city lights, and I waited for him. I was no longer the slighted wife. I was a problem waiting to be solved. Mark stormed into the apartment 2 hours later, his face flushed with alcohol and anger. "What the hell was that?" "Ilara, you made me look like a fool walking out in the middle of my speech." He threw his keys onto the glass table, making a sharp, cracking sound. I did not move from the chair. "You called me dead weight," I said, my voice terrifyingly calm. "In front of Julian Thorne." Mark snorted, loosening his tie. "Oh, for God's sake! It was a joke. You are too sensitive. That is why you are still stuck in mid-level marketing and I am running a division. You need to toughen up." The contempt in his voice hurt more than the joke at the party. He actually believed it. He tossed his suit jacket onto the sofa. His phone, still in the pocket, beeped once. The screen lit up. A message from Chloe Quantum Leap. "You were amazing tonight. Everyone loved that joke. See you at the special project tomorrow." My heart gave a single hard thump. Special project. I knew all the major projects. There was no project by that name. "Who is Chloe?" I asked, my voice still perfectly even. Mark glanced at me. "A new hire. Very promising. I am mentoring her." "What is the special project?" He hesitated for just a second, but I saw it. "The Obelisk Server Project. It is an internal code name. You know. Security. Now, I am going to take a shower. And next time, Ilara, at least pretend to be supportive." He walked away, leaving me with the blatant lie. The obelisk server project was my media assignment, and it never had that code name. The moment I heard the water running in the shower, I moved. I picked up his phone. Locked. Of course. But I did not need to get in. I just needed the lie. He was hiding something with Chloe. A special project. I went to my office in the apartment. I opened my company laptop. As the dead weight in marketing, I had access to shared servers and calendars that Mark regularly forgot about. I started digging, not as a hurt wife, but as an analyst. I found Chloe's calendar. It was mostly locked down, but there were recurring meetings marked Project S, P. They matched every time Mark said he was working late. They were booked at an off-site location, a short-term rental office in a different part of the city. I took a deep breath. This was not just an affair. Why would you need a secret office for an affair? The cold sting of betrayal was replaced by a sharper, more dangerous feeling. Curiosity. I did not sleep. I spent the entire night connecting the pieces. Being dead weight had an advantage Mark had overlooked. I was invisible. People talked in front of me as if I did not exist. I used my marketing access to review expense reports. The first discovery the affair? I found the restaurant receipts, the luxury hotel bookings, all charged to Mark's corporate credit card, coded under a shadowy expense account labeled Vendor Development. It was Chloe. The proof was clear, undeniable. Anger flared, hot and bright, but I smothered it. The pain could wait. I kept digging deeper into that Vendor Development account. And that is when I found it. The real scandal. The payments were not just for hotels. There were massive wire transfers to shell companies. Innovate Solutions LLC, TechCore Holdings. Names that sounded legitimate but had no websites, no public records. My heart was pounding in my chest. This was not tip money for a mistress. This was hundreds of thousands of dollars. Mark was not just cheating on me. He was embezzling from Quantum Leap Dynamics. The dirty little affair was not just about sex. It was about money. I traced the shell companies. They were registered in Delaware, anonymous. But I found one mistake. One of the initial filings had accidentally used an IP address from a short-term rental office. It was the exact Project S.P. address I had found in Chloe's calendar. He was using her as a front. A wave of disgust washed over me. He was using that young woman, just like he was using me. He was ruining her life to cover his own crimes. I found an encrypted folder deep on the server, one he must have thought no one could find. Retreat plan. I could not open it. It was protected by a high-level firewall, but I could see the access logs. It made my blood run cold. Only 2 people had access to that folder. User M, Vance, and User J, Thorne. A terrible scenario unfolded. Was Julian Thorne, the CEO, his accomplice, or was Mark setting his boss up to be the fall guy? The complexity of this scheme was far beyond what I had imagined. Fear flickered for a moment, but then a cold rage replaced it. Mark had underestimated me. He had underestimated me disastrously. He called me dead weight. He was about to find out that weight was made of steel. I could not make a move without knowing where Julian Thorne stood. If he was an accomplice, I was in mortal danger. If he was a victim, I had just found my most powerful ally. I had to make the gamble. That morning, I dressed carefully, not my boring marketing suit. I wore my most powerful suit, the one I had bought for a promotion interview I never got. I went straight to the top floor, to the CEO's office. Julian's assistant, a sharp woman, looked at me over expensive glasses. "Mrs. Vance, can I help you? I need to see Mr. Thorne, immediately." She raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Thorne is in a meeting. If you would like to email—" "Tell him," I interrupted, my voice solid steel, "that I am here to talk about the retreat plan." The assistant's eyes widened for just a fraction of a second. She picked up the phone. "Sir, and Alara Vance is here. She says, it is about the retreat plan." There was a pause. "Send her in." Julian's voice came through the receiver. The assistant looked shocked. Right now, sir. Right now. I was led into a massive corner office with a panoramic view of the city. Julian Thorne was standing by the window, his back to me. He was tall and silent. Mrs. Vance, he said, not turning around. You just interrupted a board meeting. This had better be important. I walked forward, placing a single thin file on his enormous wooden desk. It was just one page, a printout of one of the wire transfers to the shell company. My husband, I said, my heart hammering but my voice steady, is stealing millions of dollars from you. He calls me dead weight. I am here to prove to you that I am the most valuable asset you have. Julian turned. His face was unreadable. He glanced at the paper, then looked directly into my eyes. The gaze held, assessing, analyzing. I felt like I was being dissected. I know, he said. The room seemed to tilt. You know, I know Mark is a thief, Julian said, his voice low and cold. I have been watching him for 6 months. He is smart, but sloppy. I just did not know the how. He covered the money trail too well. Until now, I said. I found the shell companies. I found the secret office. I know about Chloe, too. Julian waved his hand dismissively. The affair is leverage. The embezzlement is the crime. And the retreat plan, I asked. That was my trap. Julian said. I created that folder, accidentally leaked its existence, to see if he would take the bait. He did. But he is too careful to put anything in it. He is waiting. So you need me, I realized. You need someone inside his life, someone he completely trusts to be harmless. Julian nodded slowly. He calls you dead weight. I call you my secret weapon. A strange alliance was formed in that pristine office, high above the city. Julian Thorne did not waste time. He was a strategist. Mark is planning to leave, he said. He is not just going to take the money. He is going to take our intellectual property, the source code for Obelisk. He wants to start a competing firm and destroy us from the outside. The ruthlessness of the plan sickened me. He was willing to gut the company that had made his career. He thinks he is getting a promotion, I said, remembering his arrogance. He thought that award was real. That was part of the trap, Julian said. We have to let him think he is winning. The more arrogant he gets, the sloppier he becomes. He made his offer. Work for me, directly. I need your eyes and ears inside his home. I need you to find out when he plans to move the code. What is in it for me? I asked, my voice hard. Julian smiled, a rare, cold expression. Justice. And when Mark is gone, his vice president position will be empty. I want the best person for that job. Prove to me that is you. This was not just revenge. This was ascension. This was a chance to take back everything Mark had stolen from me, my career, my self-respect, my future. I am in, I said, but I have one condition. What is it? Chloe, that girl. When this is over, I want to ensure he does not ruin her life along with his. She needs to be given immunity. Julian looked at me, surprised. Compassion. An interesting variable. Fine. As long as she cooperates. Late that afternoon, an email went out. Ilara Vance was being transferred to a special strategic task force, reporting directly to the CEO. When Mark saw the email, he laughed out loud. Jesus, Ilara. He is putting you on special projects. That is where he sticks people before he fires them. Try not to get underfoot too much. Dead weight. I smiled back at him. I will try my best. Dear. That night, I started my work, cloning Mark's hard drive while he slept soundly, drunk on his own success. My life became an elaborate piece of theater. By day, I worked from a discreet office near Julian's, alongside him and a small team of forensic accountants he trusted. We mapped out Mark's web of deceit. It was more complex than I had imagined. He was not just stealing. He was actively replacing the real Obelisk source code with a subtly bugged version. He wants to crash us, Julian murmured, staring at the diagram we had drawn on a massive whiteboard. When he leaves, our system will collapse, and his new company will be the only one with a working version. A flicker of reluctant admiration appeared in Julian's eyes. Ruthless, almost brilliant. By night, I returned home to Mark, playing the part of the defeated, increasingly distant wife. I intentionally started small arguments, crying about how he was shutting me out. His manufactured guilt made him careless. "I am sorry, Ilara," he would say, hugging me mechanically. "Work is just so much pressure. Everything will settle down soon." Julian and I worked closer and closer. Our mutual respect grew. He never once patronized me. He listened to my theories. "You have a fantastic analytical mind, Ilara," he said late one evening as we reviewed server logs. "Mark was an idiot not to see it." There was a tension between us, an undercurrent that had nothing to do with work. One night, it almost fell apart. I was in the home office, copying a critical file from Mark's personal server. When he came home early, I heard the door open. My heart stopped. I quickly closed the file window and pulled up a web page for divorce attorneys. Mark walked in. "What are you doing?" he asked, his voice suspicious. I quickly wiped away fake tears. "I am looking for a lawyer," I sobbed. "I cannot live like this anymore. Mark, you do not love me. You are having an affair." It was a gamble, but it worked. Sheer panic washed over his face. Not fear of losing me, but fear of exposure. "What are you talking about? There is no one else." He scrambled to comfort me, making empty promises. "Do not do anything rash, Ilara. A divorce right now. It would ruin everything." He thought I was talking about his career. I knew he was talking about his exit plan. "Just give me some time," he pleaded. "Just one more month. Everything will be sorted out." I knew exactly what that meant. That was the timeline he needed to activate his retreat plan. 1 month, I agreed, pretending to relent. I told Julian, "We have 1 month." The race was on. We needed the final, irrefutable piece of evidence, a confession from his own arrogant mouth. Julian, ever the pragmatist, suggested calling in the FBI. "No," I said, the word sharp and immediate. We were in his office, the city spread out below us. "If the FBI gets involved, they will seal the company headquarters as a crime scene. They will seize servers. Our stock will crash before we can even issue a press release. Everyone loses. Let me handle this." I knew the primary key was Chloe. She was his blind spot, his accomplice, and, ultimately, his biggest victim. I arranged to accidentally run into her at a sterile, overpriced coffee shop near their secret office. I saw her through the window before I entered, hunched over her phone. She looked young and tired. She physically jumped when she saw me standing by her table, spilling a little of her latte. "Mrs. Vance, I was just grabbing a coffee before." I summoned every bit of theater I possessed, playing the role of the betrayed, heartbroken wife to perfection. "Chloe, I know," I said, letting my voice tremble just enough to sound broken. "I know about you and Mark." Her eyes immediately filled with the predictable tears. "I am so sorry. I never meant to. It just happened." "What did he promise you?" I asked, cutting through her pathetic apology. My voice was gentle, as if I were a fellow victim. "A future, a partnership, a senior position in his new company." The look of genuine blank confusion on her face was my confirmation. "New company. What do you mean he just said he was getting a big promotion?" "Oh, you sweet, naive girl," I said, shaking my head with manufactured pity. I sat down across from her. "You do not even know. Do you think you are his partner? You are the scapegoat." I slid a printout across the table. It was one of the large wire transfers to Innovate Solutions LLC. "What is this?" she whispered, her hands shaking as she picked it up. "That is a fraction of the money Mark is stealing," I said flatly. And now, look at this. I pushed a second paper toward her. A copy of the lease agreement for the Project SP office. Her signature was clear, bold, and damning at the bottom. Look who signed the lease. Mark has set you up to take the entire fall. Pure, unadulterated panic washed over her face. Her skin went pale. No, he said that was just a formality, that his name could not be on it for corporate reasons. He said it was for tax purposes. When he disappears with over $3 million and our company's entire source code, you, I said, tapping the lease agreement, will be the only one left here to explain it to the FBI. He is not building a life with you, Chloe. He is methodically ruining yours to save himself. She finally broke, a choked sob escaping her. What do I do? Oh, God, what do I do? You help me, I said, my voice hardening, the fake pity gone. I leaned in. You help me stop him. Julian Thorne knows everything. He has been watching Mark for months. He is willing to offer you a full immunity deal. You walk away clean, but only if you help us get the final evidence. I slid a tiny digital recording device, no bigger than a stick of gum, across the table. The next time you are with him, the next time he talks about the retreat plan or his brilliant future, you turn this on. Get him to brag. Get him to talk about the money. Get him to talk about me. Get him to talk about setting you up. I watched the fear in Chloe's eyes cool, freeze, and then harden into a brittle, cold fury. The tears stopped, her hand closing around the device. He will pay for this, she whispered. I felt a small, sharp sting of guilt for manipulating her so completely, but I extinguished it as quickly as it came. This was war, and dead weight had no room for mercy. Chloe succeeded. 2 days later, she handed me the small digital recorder, her hand shaking. I listened to it in Julian's office, the speakers playing the audio into the silent room. It was pure gold. Mark's voice, arrogant and self-satisfied, boasting about how he was going to cripple Julian Thorne, how he would leave that stupid little intern Chloe holding the bag for the missing funds, and how he would be starting fresh in Singapore before anyone even knew what happened. And then, the part that killed the last shred of my past. And Ilara. Oh God, that dead weight is probably busy planning some save-the-marriage vacation for next month. She is too stupid to realize she is about to be left without a single penny. I listened to it, and every final lingering emotion I had for him evaporated. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was just nothing. He was a problem to be solved. Julian listened to the entire recording, his face an unreadable mask of stone. When it finished, he nodded once. We have him. He picked up his private line. Schedule an emergency meeting of the full board, tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Tell them it concerns the entire future of the Obelisk project. He hung up and looked at me. He will think this is his coronation. He will think I am finally announcing his promotion to COO. He will never see what is coming, I said, feeling a complete, cold calm settle over me. That night, I went home. The penthouse felt like a hotel, a place I was just visiting. Mark was in the kitchen, whistling, opening a celebratory bottle of champagne. A toast, my love, he announced, pouring me a glass. Tomorrow is a big day, the biggest day of our lives. Oh, I asked, taking a sip. It tasted like ash. I cannot tell you the details, he winked, but let us just say, you will never have to worry about money ever again. That is wonderful, I said, raising my glass. Here's to your big day, Mark. After he fell asleep, drunk on his own brilliance, I executed my final steps. I transferred my entire personal savings and the inheritance I had kept separate from our joint accounts into a new account at a different bank. I packed one small suitcase, only the essentials. I left my wedding ring on the bedside table. Next to it, I placed a single folded note. On it, I wrote 2 words, dead weight. At 5 a.m., a black car idled downstairs. I walked out of the building without looking back. Julian Thorne was waiting in the back seat. He did not say anything. He just nodded. We drove to the office in silence as the dawn began to break over the Chicago skyline. The stage was set. The boardroom was packed. The entire C-suite, the board members. The air was thick with anticipation. Mark walked in like a king, slapping colleagues on the back. His smile worth $1 million. Literally. He caught my eye. I was sitting quietly in an auxiliary chair against the wall, next to Julian. He smirked at me, a smug little expression that said, "See, this is my world." He did not even notice my ring was gone. Julian began the meeting. "Thank you all for coming. We are here to discuss the future of the Obelisk Project and the leadership of that division." Mark visibly puffed out his chest. "Mark," Julian said, his voice even, "you have a presentation on the launch strategy. I believe—" "Absolutely, Julian," Mark said, standing up, plugging in his laptop. He launched into his presentation, full of slick graphics and inflated revenue projections. 10 minutes into it, the board looked impressed. Mark was at his absolute peak. I glanced at Julian. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. It was time. "Thank you, Mark," Julian interrupted, his voice cutting through the room. "An ambitious presentation, almost fictional." Mark stopped, his smile freezing. "I am not sure I follow, Julian." "Oh, I think you do," Julian said. "For example, you neglected to mention Project SP." The color began to drain from Mark's face. That is a side project. Exploring methods of embezzling over $3 million from this company. Julian asked, his voice ice. The room went dead silent. Every eye locked on Mark, whose mouth was hanging open. "Julian, this is a ridiculous misunderstanding." "Is it?" Julian said. "And I suppose your relationship with Miss Chloe Martin, whose name is on the lease for your secret office, is also a misunderstanding." "That is a personal matter," Mark boomed, panic finally creeping into his voice. "It becomes a company matter when you use company funds to pay for her hotel rooms, and when you frame her to take the fall for your crimes," Julian said. The boardroom door opened. Chloe walked in, flanked by the company's general counsel. Her face was terrified but resolute. Mark looked at her, raw betrayal on his face. "You," he whispered. "But that is not even the best part," Julian said, turning his gaze from Mark to me. "Ilara, would you do the honors?" I stood up, feeling every molecule in my body vibrating with cold energy. I walked to the front of the room, taking the remote from the podium. "You called me dead weight." "Mark," I said, my voice echoing, perfectly clear in the stunned silence. "But dead weight is just something you trip over. I am the gravity. I am what pulls everything down." I pressed the button. The large screen switched from Mark's fraudulent slides to something else. It was not a presentation. It was an audio file. Mark's voice, captured in crystal clarity, filled the boardroom. "Julian is an idiot. And Ilara, that dead weight, is probably busy planning some save the marriage vacation." I pressed the button again. A new track played. Mark's voice again, this time boasting to Chloe. "The bugged version of Obelisk will crash their servers within a week, and I will be in Singapore with $3 million and the clean source code." The silence in the room was so heavy it was almost suffocating. The board members looked like they had just been physically struck. Mark lunged toward me, his face a mask of purple rage. Turn it off, you bitch." He never touched me. 2 security officers, who had been waiting patiently outside the door, stepped in and seized him by the arms. "Mark Vance," Julian said, his voice devoid of all emotion. "You are fired, effective immediately. You are being charged with embezzlement, corporate fraud, and industrial espionage. Ilara." "You cannot do this to me," he screamed, struggling against the guards. "Our accounts. You cannot live without me." I looked him straight in the eye, his pathetic contempt now twisted into pure animal terror. "You are wrong, Mark. Those were my accounts, and I have already taken everything back. Good luck with your legal fees." He was dragged from the room, still screaming curses. The door shut, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Julian stood up, smoothing his suit jacket. "Clearly," he said to the board, "we have a vice president position that needs to be filled. I nominate Alara Vance." He turned his gaze to me. "She did not just discover this theft. She led the investigation. She saved this company. Any objections?" An older board member at the end of the table spoke into the silence. I seconded the motion. All hands went up. An hour later, I was boxing up the few personal items from my old marketing desk. I did not need anything from there. I had a new office waiting. Mark's corner office. Julian was waiting for me at the elevator. We rode up to the executive floor in silence. When the doors opened, he held them for me. "Later," he said, his voice low. "Tonight. Dinner. To celebrate." It was not a request. It was a statement. He was my boss, but he was also my ally. He was the only one who had seen my value when no one else, including myself, had. I looked into my new office. My office. "I will drive," I said. Julian smiled. A real smile this time, one that actually reached his eyes. "I knew you would." I had revealed his dirty little affair. I had left him for his boss, not as a mistress, but as his replacement, as his equal. The dead weight was gone, and for the first time in 15 years, I felt light. Thank you so much for listening to this story. Please comment below and let us know where you are listening from so we can connect and share our thoughts. We invite you to subscribe to Lily Revenge Stories, like this video, and show your support by hitting the hype button so this story can be heard by many more people.